Welcome back to the podcast. This is the Equally Yoked Show. We're going to be doing a different show today, a different type of show, where we are going to be looking at the ancient. I just completely lost my train of thought. But we're going to be looking at Israel, the ancient city, the ancient country of Israel, the sort of beginnings of it. We're not going to be going too much in detail with everything, but I did see an interesting video that literally just popped up a day ago. And Oxygen, welcome to the podcast. You are our first comment. Thanks so much for being here. We're going to be talking a lot about what's going on with really the start of Israel. And otherwise, just wanted to make a few comments with regards to everything that's happening in the LA area and wherever else with regards to the whole anti-ICE protests. The only thing that I can say or should say is that if you're trying to protest something for the good of something or for people to have their rights, I don't know, or at least to be able to have their demonstrations communicated effectively, do them in a calm manner. There needs to be no violence. Because you're not going to show anybody anything when you're being violent. Otherwise, you're just going to get put into jail. That's what the administration is saying. That's just something I'm relaying. So if you're trying to portray something, do it in a peaceful manner. Maybe they'll hear you out better than the other way. Otherwise, let's talk a little bit about the story of Joshua. Joshua was one of the next in line after Moses to lead the Israelites into the promised land. As we know, as you may know or may not know, Moses was not allowed to enter into the promised land because he misrepresented God to the people. That is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And he misrepresented him during the story of when he struck the rock, when he was told to speak to the rock. The first time, God told him to strike the rock. The second time, God told him to speak to the rock. And the people mistook Moses, mistook God for being angry through Moses because Moses was the prophet of which God was speaking through. And when we look at the whole story of Israel becoming a nation, God called Abraham, and before there was any type of land there, any sort of settlements or whatever, God told Abraham that look to the east, look to the west, even to his seed. Look at the stars in heaven. All these I will give to you. God makes the promise to Abraham. And Abraham, coming out of a land of the from his father, coming from the background that is heavy in idolatry, is called by God and decides to turn from his ways to follow God. That's all we know about Abraham. We don't know if he was a righteous man. We don't know if he was an idolizer of false idols. But ultimately, we know that Abraham decided to follow God. And when he did, he was well off. And I'm not talking about a health and wealth prosperity gospel here. I'm talking about the fact that, simply put, when you follow the God of heaven, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, you will see the blessing that God has for you, but you won't get that blessing without trial. It's just how it is. That's how the Bible is laid out. There's no promise of health, wealth, and prosperity. There's only the promise of, if you die to self, pick up your own cross, and follow after Christ, you will indeed inherit life. But if you don't do that, you won't gain anything. You seek to lose your life, you'll gain, right? So otherwise, let me know your guys' comments, thoughts. We're going to be going over the story of Joshua. We're going to take a look a little bit about the story, more particularly the story in AI, the story of I. I say AI because it's spelled AI. But the story in Joshua 7, we see a historical documentation where people have commonly said that this story has been debunked by archaeology. But there is no archaeological evidence that AI existed or I existed. What do you guys think? Is it AI or I? Based on the pronunciation? Let's see if we can look it up here and get an idea of what it is. Where is it? Heap of ruins? That might be it. Interesting. Very interesting. Okay, so let's take a look at this story here. And this is Joshua. During this time, he is a welcome from Oregon. We are looking at UNC. What we looking at UNC? We are looking at Logos Bible Software. And this is the story of Israel defeating I, or AI. I still don't know the pronunciation of that. So otherwise, we're going to be going over a video that is titled The Problem of Joshua's Eye Solved. And this is from a YouTube channel called Expedition Bible, who is an archaeologist. UNC Unk. Man. Is that a term that is being used? I mean, we've always used that term unk for uncle, but is it being brought back? I haven't heard that term in a long time. But otherwise, we're going to be looking at this video. Let me just show you really quick to show you what we're going to be looking at shortly. And this is the video from Expedition Bible. Here's what we got going on.
Located roughly 12 miles north of Jerusalem were the two biblical cities of Bethel and Ai.
Yeah, so we're going to be going through that video very soon, very, very soon. And before I get there, I want to read a little bit of the story in Joshua, the book of Joshua, in order to get some context as to what we're talking about here, because the idea that Israel doesn't own the land that they are on, that they are just occupiers. Israel has always been there for, over a millennia. And this whole idea of the Palestinians being there beforehand is not true. The actual name Palestinian are actually, the original Palestinians were Jews, and that name was given by an emperor who gave them that name as a derogatory name. And the Palestinians, and the modern day Palestinian is now Arab. It's not Jew to Arab. They don't become Arabs because of the name. The Arabs have inherited the name at some point in time in history. And the Palestinian group, we see that they were rejected by the other surrounding nations, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon let them in for a little while, but then there was a Lebanese war, and that was because the Palestinians took over certain areas within high places, the government, and they caused war against Christians and Jews, and it just got really, really bad. And Egypt didn't want them, Libya didn't want them, so Israel took them and put them in Gaza. So Israel removed its citizens from Gaza and gave it to the Palestinians. And so they've been there since. They gave them the ability to, of course, in the West Bank as well, which is the Palestinian Authority, but they gave them the ability to elect their own government. And as they elect their own government, they decided to elect Hamas, and that's who's been there since, I want to say, 2005. And so what we're looking at here in this story in Joshua chapter 7, it says, but the people of Israel broke faith in regard to the devoted things, for Achan, the son of Carmi, son of Zadbi, son of Zerah, of the tribe of Judah, took some of the devoted things, and the anger of the Lord burned against the people of Israel. Joshua sent men from Jericho to Ai, which is near Beth-aven, east of Bethel, and said to them, go up and spy out the land. And the men went and spied out Ai. And they returned to Joshua and said to him, do not have all. Sorry, I lost my spot. Do not have all the people go up, but let about 2,000 or 3,000 men go up and attack Ai. Do not make the whole people toil up there, for they are few. So about 3,000 men went up there from the people, and they fled before the men of Ai. And the men of Ai killed about 36 of their men and chased them before the gate as far as Shebarim, and struck them at the descent. And the hearts of the people melted and became as water. Then Joshua tore off his clothes and fell to the earth on his face before the ark of the Lord until the evening. So Joshua is clearly in anguish here because he's lost some men. He's believed that he heard from the Lord to go as the Lord had said. Right? But they broke faith, as it says up above here, with regard to the devoted things. And we'll see more of what that is. God tells him what's going on. So he tore off his clothes, fell on his face before the ark of the Lord, which is the ark of the covenant, and he and the elders of Israel. And they put dust on their heads, and Joshua said, alas, O Lord God, why have you brought this people over the Jordan at all? To give us into the hands of the Amorites? To destroy us? Would that have been content to dwell beyond the Jordan? Sorry, would that we had been content to dwell beyond the Jordan? Oh Lord, what can I say? When Israel has turned their backs before their enemies, for the Canaanites and all the inhabitants of the land will hear of it and will surround us and cut off our name from the earth. Now, the city of Canaan is where we come up to the part of Jericho where they walk around the wall, right? And on the last day, they walk around the wall 7 times. And they shout, and the wall falls. Clearly a way you wouldn't do things militaristically. But they trusted in God to do it. So anyway, it says here, and what will you do for your name, for your great name? And it says the sin of Achan. The Lord said to Joshua, get up. Why have you fallen on your face? Israel has sinned. God said, if you sin against me, you will be cursed in a specific manner. They have transgressed my covenant that I commanded them. They have taken some of the devoted things. They have stolen and lied and put them among their own belongings. Therefore, the people of Israel cannot stand before their enemy. Because they sinned against the Lord, they transgressed against his covenant. They could not stand before their enemies. They turn their backs before their enemies because they have become devoted for destruction. I will be with you no more unless you destroy the devoted things from you. Get up, consecrate the people, and say, consecrate yourselves for tomorrow, for thus says the Lord, God of Israel, there are devoted things in your midst, O Israel. You cannot stand before your enemies until you take away the devoted things from among you. So from this point on, God has been leading them, and God has been giving the enemies into their hands. So then they've been able to conquer the lands that they have been thus far. But they're put at a sort of halt at this moment. And we're going to see that there's a punishment because of the fact that there's some that are holding devoted things. And then he goes on to say, he says, in the morning, therefore, you shall be brought near by your tribes, and the tribe that the Lord takes by lot shall come near by clans, and the clan that the Lord takes shall come near by households, and the household that the Lord takes shall come near man by man. And he who is taken with the devoted things shall be burned with fire, and he and all that he has, because he has transgressed the covenant of the Lord, and because he has done an outrageous thing in Israel. So Joshua rose early in the morning and brought Israel near tribe by tribe, and the tribe of Judah was taken. And he brought near the clans of Judah, and the clan of the Zerahites was taken. And he brought near the clan of Zerahites man by man, and Zabdi was taken, and he was brought near the household man by man. And Achan, the son of Carmi, the son of Zabdi, the son of Zerah, the tribe of Judah, was taken. Interesting. Of the tribe of Judah, this is the tribe that Jesus is from. The Lion of the tribe of Judah. You got to think, like, man, if there was an author writing the book of this Messiah who's to come, he would have even his lineage to be holy and great in name. Yet that seems to not be the case here, because the line of Judah here is involved with some serious sin. Then Joshua said to Achan, my son, give glory to the Lord God of Israel, and give praise to him, and tell me now what you have done. Do not hide it from me. And Achan answered Joshua, truly I have sinned against the Lord God of Israel, and this is what I did. When I saw among the spoil a beautiful cloak of Shinar and 200 shekels of silver and a bar of gold weighing 50 shekels, then I coveted. Coveted. Thou shalt not covet. Where does it say that? The 10 Commandments. Thou shalt not covet. Then I coveted them and took them, and see, they are hidden in the earth inside my tent with their silver underneath. So Joshua sent messengers, and they ran to the tent. Behold, it was hidden in his tent with the silver underneath. So far, what are you guys thinking about the story of Joshua? You guys understand what's happening here? I hope I'm explaining it decently. It's pretty self-explanatory. Not hard to understand. It says, and they took them out of the tent and brought them to Joshua, to all the people of Israel, and laid them down before the Lord. And Joshua and all Israel with him took Achan the son of Zerah, and the silver and the cloak and the bar of gold, and his sons and daughters, and his oxen and donkeys and sheep, and his tent and all that he had. And they brought them up in the valley of Achor. And Joshua said, why did you bring trouble on us? The Lord brings trouble on you today. And all Israel stoned him with stones. They burned them with fire and stoned them with stones. And they raised over him a great heap of stones that remains to this day. Then the Lord turned from this burning anger. Therefore, to this day, the name of that place is called Valley of Achor. Wonder if those stones are still there. The fall of Ai. And the Lord said to Joshua, do not fear, do not be dismayed. Take all the fighting men with you. Arise and go up to Ai. See that I have given into your hand the king of Ai and his people, his city, and his land. And you shall do to Ai and its king as you did to Jericho and its king. Only its spoil and its livestock you shall take as plunder for yourselves. Lay an ambush against the city behind it. So now God is giving them provision in order to take the city of Ai. Now this leads us to the video that we're going to be looking at here on this channel called Expedition Bible. So let's get there now and let's watch exactly what's going on with this archaeological site.
Located roughly 12 miles north of Jerusalem were the two biblical cities of Bethel and Ai. This mound of ruins, known locally as Etel, has for a long time been identified as the ancient city of Ai, where the most descriptive battle in the Bible took place as part of the Israelite conquest of the Promised Land. In 1985, the Jewish scholar Zioni Zevit wrote an article entitled The Problem of I, which well represented the majority view that the archaeological evidence excavated at Ai rejects the battle as described in the Bible. In short, wrote Dr. Zevit, the evidence shows that there was no city of Ai for the Israelites to conquer. The problem of Ai has to do with archaeology, and for a very long time, especially within evangelical Christian scholarship, this has been the biggest and most confusing challenge to the Bible.
Why can't you stay organized? I've experienced this.
So far, we've got this sort of stinger of what's going on with this archaeology, this site that they're looking at and digging into. They're trying to find out if this story of Joshua is real. And there's a lot of things that we were trying to discuss and discover with the story of Joshua, and trying to figure out if what was said in Joshua is actually real. And the archaeology that we're finding seems to point to the very fact that the story and the stories in the Bible are true. And this is constantly proven over and over again.
Excavate at Etel.
Now, if you don't know about these sort of archaeology sites that they conduct, there's a lot of territory that is held by Turkey that they cannot excavate, or for whatever matter that they cannot start to excavate. But there's a lot of stuff and a lot of history that we haven't found in Egypt because of the restrictions to excavations, or I think only 5% of Egypt is actually excavated. But there's a lot more that would be revealed should they start to begin excavation process. But there's, of course, political stuff that gets in the way from anybody being able to excavate in Israel and Egypt, in various places where we read about in the Bible.
As I was the British archaeologist John Garstang, and he dug there in 1928. And the evidence that he found there, he said, confirmed the biblical account of the Battle of Ai. Then later, starting in 1964, Joseph Callaway excavated at Etel, and he said the exact opposite. He said the archaeological evidence he found contradicted the biblical account of Ai. And it was really confusing because there was no reason to think that Joseph Callaway was not being honest with what he found, because he was a Baptist seminary professor. Callaway wrote, "Ai is simply an embarrassment to every view of the conquest that takes the biblical and archaeological evidence seriously." What a strange thing for a Baptist seminary professor to say, that the biblical site that he's excavating is an embarrassment to those who believe in the Bible? So to our utter amazement, God opened the door and we were able in 2019 to excavate Etel, that is biblical Ai, for ourselves. And so we were able to expose the evidence and look at, does this evidence confirm the biblical record or contradict the biblical record? Was Garstang right or was Callaway right? And essentially what we were digging for was the evidence that could answer the problem of Ai once and for all.
So you say, no, the biblical scholars almost unanimously agree that the archaeology doesn't support the book of Joshua, and miracle claims like the sun stopping in the sky is physically impossible. Well, here's a problem to your claim here. The problem to your claim is what I mentioned just prior, is that there's not enough archaeology being allowed to be excavated in these regions because of political nonsense. And so in this video here, he says, by God's, I forget his exact words, but basically by God's grace, we were able to do and begin excavation here. Excavation in these sites are not easy to come by. They're not easy to come across. They happen very, very rarely to be able to excavate these things. And I think we know why. Because people want to create a narrative that the Bible and the stories of the Bible are not real. We have the historical documents to prove so, but archaeology only backs up the claims all the more. And so the miracle, like the sun stopping in the sky, is physically impossible. Then we have to say that the sort of the eradication of a cancer cells in somebody's body from nothing, no treatments, no nothing, where it's suddenly gone, we have to just say, well, that's not a miracle, right? We have to eliminate all those other things that are considered by scholars, doctors, people that do research on this stuff that would be considered a miracle, nothing short but a miracle. So we have to just say, well, that can't happen. That can't happen. I've heard countless of stories of cancer being healed, gone, no treatments, going against what the doctors have said to do, like chemotherapy or whatever. These miracles that have happened, I've witnessed. There's one that's actually caught on camera, audio tape, actually. This is from several years ago, several years ago, of a pastor who was talking. He lost his voice, and he was just going through it. And this church asked him to come by and to do a sermon, and so he had prepared this message, talking about how God redeems him from the pit, from a specific passage in the Bible that talks about that God redeems us from the pit. And immediately when he says that, his voice was healed that moment. And he began speaking normally. Right? Caught on audio. This is not AI. This is from years ago. So you say, that's the same claim flat earthers say about ice wall man. No one is stopping archaeologists. This is not a flat earth claim. We can clearly and easily debunk the flat earth theory by going into a plane. Sudden remissions in cancer happen statistically in the same rate for all religions and non-religious people. The remission of cancer, the statistics, the things that happen miraculously from people dying to coming back to life, being pronounced dead, all the other types, so we can put all that in a bucket, right? The things that doctors and people, researchers, claim to be miracles. The sun can most certainly stand still. If God can create the heavens and the earth, if God can create man from nothing, if God can create anything from nothing, then most certainly he can make the sun stand still, even the fact that he created it. So, in your view, giant midget, just reminds me of Peter Dinklage in Avengers. Who is God? Or what created everything? The mathematical probability of nothing coming from nothing is impossible, nearly impossible. The odds are too great to have everything perfectly aligned, to be able to sustain life, to be able to put us in the right position of the sun, to be able to have our planet warm completely, perfectly, have the seasons that we have. There's too much nuance, too much detail for this to just happen out of nowhere. So there has to be a being that created all of this that is outside of time, space, and matter. And time, space, and matter can't be that being that exists forever, because these are created things. So it can't be the thing that has been here forever, the eternal thing. Because time, space, and matter doesn't have sentience, or doesn't have the intellectual capacity that we have. Because there's no evidence that supports that. So I haven't been lied to. In fact, I know the truth.
Don't forget to hit that subscribe button on the ArcuLink where you can make a donation. These are greatly appreciated and used for the production of future videos. The location of Ai is obvious, since Genesis 12:8 says that Abraham pitched his tent with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. So this shows that these two biblical cities of Bethel and Ai are close to each other and east and west of each other. Now Bethel had been excavated. It had been clearly identified. I did a video on Bethel that you can watch after this, and it became an anchor point in biblical archaeology. In other words, since the location of Bethel was known so well, other biblical cities could be found based on where they were located in accordance to Bethel. None easier than the city of Ai.
So Giant Midget, these stories, or rather these archaeological finds, they mean nothing to you, essentially. Is that kind of your mindset on this? So we have the biblical account, we have the documents, and the excavation doesn't prove any of it, that these stories are true. What is your point of view on that? I'm curious.
According to the Bible, from ancient Bethel, all we have to do is travel east, and soon we'll come to the fortified city of Ai. We can see what this area currently looks like using this aerial footage. The ruins of ancient Bethel are under this town. When we fly east, we soon come to a distinct mound of ruins of a walled city known locally as Etel. Obviously, this is Ai. In fact, Etel means the ruin, just as Ai also means ruin. These are the reasons why, for a very long time, scholarship has identified Etel as biblical Ai.
And if they really wanted to pull all the resources in order to excavate these sites and to find where they are, there's technology that people are able to utilize in order to find this stuff. It's technology that we have, but it's technology that is not easy to acquire, especially when you're involving the government's assistance, because most of these archaeology excavations are funded by, people that are interested in finding this stuff. So they have to gain their monetary, ability to be able to do this on their own without the help of the government and without the help of these insane tools to be able to find these cities. They could easily use some of the US's military or the IDF, technologies to be able to use sonar, sensor technology in order to find what's under the ground. It could be easily done, but very hard to come across.
Obvious. And so the problem of Ai is not in its location, and nor is it in the topography of the area. In his article, Zevitt wrote, "In the course of my visits to Etel, I have been struck by the astounding extent to which the topographical details of the Battle of Ai and the biblical accounts can be identified on the ground. So to learn about the topography of this land and how it fits the biblical record, we'll go through the story of the second Battle of Ai, which is found in Joshua 8, and then we'll look at aerial views as well as 3D animation, which, keep in mind, is based on the actual topography of this area. After conquering Jericho, the Israelites attacked the city of Ai but lost the battle. The second Battle of Ai is described in Joshua chapter 8. This time Joshua's plan was to set an ambush behind the city, and so Joshua sent them, that is the ambush troops, out at night. Early the next morning, Joshua mustered his army and marched before them to Ai. The entire force that was with him marched up and approached the city and arrived in front of it. They set up camp north of Ai, with the valley between them and the city. Directly north of Etel is a wide ridgetop, ideal for setting up a large military camp. This fits the description for where Joshua's main army camped in plain sight of the city. In the next shot, I'm standing here. I'm standing on a ridge north of Ai. You can see a valley coming in behind me here that separates out this north ridge that I'm standing on, and then the Bronze Age ruins of the city of Ai on the southern side of that valley. If I walk over here, we see this open area with all these olive trees in here, and this is the logical place for the campsite of Joshua and the Israelites, since it's described as being north of the city of Ai with the valley between them. Verse 12 says, Joshua had taken about 5,000 men and set them in ambush between Bethel and Ai, to the west of the city.
So we see so far that we have a great account of where Ai is actually located, and the archaeology and the archaeological evidence is proven true by the location and by the descriptions of what we get about in the Bible and what we see in real life. We see that the layout is proper according to what they've discovered with this ancient city, which means ruins, which that's what I saw. It means I means ruins. And so all that is quite interesting. So I'm going to continue playing this. I'm going to step away for a sec.
Just to the west of Etel is this hill, and from its southern slope neither Bethel or Ai could be seen, and it's a large enough area for 5,000 men to hide. So I'm standing up on a hill that is west of the city of Ai. This is the one that makes sense geographically for Ambush Hill, because on the backside of this hill, an army, which there were 5,000 men, could not be seen from either Bethel or from the city of Ai. So the soldiers took up their positions, with the main camp to the north of the city and the ambush to the west of it. That night Joshua went into the valley. Before we continue the story of the Battle of Ai, we want to make sure we understand the topography. To the west we have the city of Bethel, and nearby and east of Bethel is the city of Ai. Ambush Hill is west of Ai, and on the ridge to the north was Joshua's main camp, with the valley between them. Further east is the desert wilderness and the Jordan Valley, called the Arabah in Hebrew. Here's how the topography currently looks. Ambush Hill, the ruins of Bethel and Ai, the valley that separates Ai from Joshua's main camp to the north, and further to the east, the wilderness and Arabah. Joshua 8:14 says, when the king of Ai saw this, referring to Joshua's army to the north of the city, he and all the men of the city hurried out early in the morning to meet Israel in battle at a certain place overlooking the Arabah. Verse 15 continues, Joshua and all Israel let themselves be driven back before them, and they fled toward the wilderness. This barren desert area is the wilderness. The Israelites fell back towards it to the east. The biblical account continues. All the men of Ai were called to pursue them, and they pursued Joshua and were lured away from the city. Not a man remained in Ai or Bethel who did not go after Israel. They left the city open and went in pursuit of Israel.
So I think what we're going to do is we're going to pause it here. We're going to take a look at this another day, because this is something that we need to go into great detail on to understand the evidence that we're looking at here and the problems that we face. And according to this video, we see that the problem of Joshua's eye is solved. So we want to go back to that. Of course, there's so much that is happening here with regards to the Israel and everything that's happening with, all this stuff. And we want to make sure that we analyze this with accurate eyes. And I just want to thank you guys for being here. I know as of right now, there's only 3 of you here. And I want to just thank you guys for being on this podcast, because we're looking at some important stuff here. And it's not easy to really come by the truth of the things that we actually look at here. And so, guys, I want to thank you so much for being here. If you guys like what you guys are seeing so far, please like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. And again, these aren't the typical conversations that we usually have. We usually talk about political stuff, things that are going on in the world going on, and just looking at it through a biblical lens view. So otherwise, thanks so much for being here. I'll see you guys in the next one. I've got some things that I got to deal with right now. So appreciate it, guys. Thanks. Peace.